Welcome to the Explainer. Right, let's jump straight in, because today we're diving into a space where the pursuit of public truth collides head-on with hidden state agendas. We're talking about the murky, highly secretive intersection of espionage and the press.
So here is the start question getting to the very heart of this history. Can you genuinely seek the truth while keeping the government's secrets? Honestly, it sounds like the plot of a Cold War spy novel. But actual unclassified records from Germany's foreign intelligence agency, the BND, show us a very real and very messy historical conflict. Just consider the shocking dual life of Wilhelm Dietl. To the public, he was this celebrated star foreign correspondent for magazines like Quick and Focus. He was out there interviewing massive figures like Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat and breaking major stories on the terrorist Carlos the Jackal. But back in 1982, the BND approached him, and for 11 whole years, this famous, trusted journalist was secretly on the payroll of the German intelligence service. To give you a real sense of this ethical collision, let's look at one specific assignment in Jordan. Dietl was officially tasked by the BND to compile membership lists of the Abu Nidal terrorist organization, a highly secretive and violent group. So while his editors and his readers completely believed he was just chasing down his next big journalistic story, he was actively compiling intelligence for the state, all while presenting himself to his subjects purely as a reporter.
Okay, let's pull back for a second, because the crazy part is Dietl absolutely wasn't an isolated case. To understand how deeply intertwined these two worlds were, we have to rewind to 1974. Chancellor Willy Brandt's team, specifically Chancellery head Horst MK, really wanted to know just how closely the BND was working with journalists. Well, what they uncovered was a secret list that exposed deep, systemic collusion between the state and the media. The BND literally used this cold, bureaucratic system of Roman numerals to categorize prominent journalists. Category Roman 1 meant permanent, paid contacts, or reporters who had their travel covered by the agency. And there were an astonishing 66 of them. Roman 3 covered 116, chance contacts or prospective agents. They even flagged highly respected figures like DIZ editor-in-chief Marion Dunoff as a potential contact. It was just this wild era where the boundary between reporter and agent was terrifyingly blurred.
Fast forward to the 1990s, and we see this systemic collusion actually escalate into highly targeted operations. Take the case of Erich Schmidt-Einbaum. He was a very vocal critic who was exposing the BND. So a high-ranking BND official reached out to him under the guise of discussing his books. Slowly, he compromised Schmidt-Einbaum with gifts. We're talking a built-in kitchen, a copier, and disguised financial donations totaling thousands of Deutschmarks. And then, when the BND decided they wanted to uncover who his insider sources were, that relationship suddenly flipped into intense surveillance.
And the gritty details here are just wild. They really show how desperate the BND was to stop internal leaks. Picture a shadowy street. Operatives had a vehicle parked continuously outside Schmidt-Einbaum's institute. They even concealed a hidden camera inside a car's sun visor to film his visitors. Agents were literally secretly rummaging through his waste paper looking for clues. The state was actively hunting a journalist's sources. Well, the tension finally snapped in November 2005. Andreas Förster, who was a reporter investigating these exact surveillance tactics, published an explosive exposé titled In the Crosshairs. He publicly revealed the systematic monitoring of Schmidt-Einbaum and others, and that just broke the scandal completely wide open. But in trying to shed light on the truth, Förster experienced a second, deeply personal betrayal. The absolute shock of this is perfectly captured in Förster's own words. He was actually tipped off that he himself was being tailed. Now, back then, the intelligence reporting community was small. It was tight-knit. They trusted each other because they shared this goal of critically examining spy agencies. Suddenly, they realized their own colleagues were hiding their cards and acting as informants for the state. The sense of betrayal within the press was just staggering. Naturally, the public outrage over all of this was massive. It led Parliament to appoint a special investigator, former federal judge Gerhard Schaefer. And the resulting Schaefer report was a huge watershed moment. After reviewing meticulous BND files, the report definitively ruled that state surveillance of the press in Germany was largely illegal. More than that, it officially confirmed that journalists had actively helped the BND investigate their peers. Now, if you want to understand the true depth of the Dietl betrayal specifically, it really comes down to one staggering number: 177. According to the report, that is the documented number of secret meetings between Wilhelm Dietl, who by the way operated under the codenames Dolly and Schweiger, and BND department head Volker Forch. This wasn't just some passing relationship. This was deep, highly coordinated cooperation over years. Now, as an impartial explainer, we really need to look at both sides of this because there are two fiercely different accounts of what actually happened in those 177 meetings. The official report officially claims Deitel actively divulged internal newsroom info, specifically tipping off the BND about where Der Spiegel obtained sources for a major cover story on plutonium. Deitel, however, adamantly defends himself. He insists he absolutely never crossed the line into spying on peers. He claims it was just harmless small talk about the media landscape and that his colleagues were merely jealous of his success. So it's one journalist's word against a massive intelligence report.
So how does this happen? To understand why reporters fall into this trap, we have to look at the psychological engine driving it all. It boils down to a Latin phrase, do ut des. I give so that you give. Think about it. Intelligence agencies hold massive, secret stories about national security. To get access to that incredible information, journalists feel this immense pressure to offer something in return. It's a very dangerous trap that forces reporters into a slippery cycle of treating secrets.
So where exactly is the ethical boundary today? What's the red line? Modern investigative journalists, like Lars Peterson, define it pretty clearly. Taking a walk with an agent for a background briefing, that is entirely normal and necessary for reporting. But the absolute moment a journalist actively offers themselves as a source, saying something like, hey, I can tell you what's happening in my newsroom, that is completely unacceptable. That is the exact, undeniable line between doing journalism and becoming an agent.
Ultimately, the fallout from the Deitel case and that Schaefer report fundamentally altered history. It forced the BND to establish strict new boundaries. They officially recognized the findings, and they heavily revised their service regulations. Today, legally mandating that using journalists is a considerable exception, and they tightly restrict departmental approval for any media contacts. If you contrast that with the Wild West of those 1974 Roman numeral lists, it completely redefined how intelligence agencies are permitted to interact with the press. So, in a world full of shadows, where does the line of journalistic integrity truly lie? When a reporter decides to trade their notebook for the government's secrets, what is the ultimate cost to the credibility of a free press? It's a heavy question, but it's one the media must continuously ask themselves to protect the very foundation of their profession. Thanks for joining me for this explainer today. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.